Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Hope Watts, board certified family physician, health coach, speaker, author, and lifestyle expert. I help people with common chronic diseases get to the weight that they really want to be at to help reduce the risk factors that they have with some of these common diseases. I hope everybody had a chance to celebrate Juneteenth this weekend. I was just so shocked that they signed it into being on Friday. President Biden came in Friday, signed it. I talked to my brother in law, and he was like shocked that he had a day off. Um, I guess it was end of day Thursday, and they said, yeah, you have the day off. So please remember that this was hard earned, and we should celebrate, even if some of these other bills have not come through for us. We still need to celebrate all the things. And I went to a celebration, and the talent that we have and the colors, oh, it was wonderful. And the singing, and we were in our glory. And I love to hear all the talent that's just brimming in our neighborhoods. So please, 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 if you get a chance to go to a Juneteenth celebration, by all means do. And just remember to teach your children about Juneteenth and some of the other things that may have occurred, because there is legislation not to bring that up in schools. And I think that's unfortunate, because we need to know. We need to know, our children need to know, so that we know how things went and how. Hi, Pam. I wasn't expecting to see you. But thank you, Pam, because you gave me something to post on Juneteenth. So today, we're going to talk about emotional eating. And I know people go around all the time saying, oh, I'm an emotional eater. And I think I've even said that myself too. But there are times when we eat because we're upset. But when we think about emotional eaters, we know that they eat because, not because they're hungry, they eat because they're upset, they're angry. Things didn't go their way. They didn't like what someone said, so they automatically start eating. The other problem is that after they start eating, they don't seem to be able to stop. They will eat and eat and eat and eat until they're stuffed. And then they feel bad about it because they know they ate a lot of food they shouldn't really be eating. And many people, not all people who are emotional eaters, have problems with their weight. So some of the foods that they eat are junk food, totally junk food. Twinkies, cakes, candies, a lot of sweets, popcorn. Well, popcorn's a low calorie food, but I don't think they eat that. They eat a lot of other foods that they know they shouldn't be eating in that amount at that time. Many times they're empty calories. And to be honest, people who are emotional eaters, they don't eat a whole bag of apples. I haven't heard one of them say that to me. They don't eat a whole bag of oranges either. But what they do, they will eat a whole half a gallon of ice cream, and they feel so bad afterwards. Or they'll have a pizza. They buy a large pizza and they eat the whole thing. And they know they weren't supposed to do that. But these emotional urges, these emotions kind of take over, and they seem to give them these urges to really eat a lot of food. Now, this is not considered binge eating. There are separate definitions for that, and we'll have to go into that, not at this time, but in a later time when we finish talking about it. Emotional eating is making yourself feel better because You're feeling so bad, but you're doing it with food. You're not sitting down and talking to someone. You're not sitting down and listening to music. You're not sitting down and watching the TV. You're eating food in large amounts of it. Um, as you know, most people eat because they're hungry, but people with emotional eating will eat because they're very upset about things. Now, here's one thing that you need to understand. If you're thinking that you may have something like this, after you eat, the emotions are still there. You're still angry, you're still upset, you're still sad, you're still depressed, you're still anxious. The problem is still there because the eating does not take care of those emotions. So the other thing is people start to feel guilty because they've eaten all that food. And and they may be telling themselves, oh, I'm not going to eat again, I'm not going to eat again, I'm not going to do that again. But a lot of times this behavior is so ingrained that it comes up all of a sudden. They don't even realize they're into eating. And they may have told themselves they're not going to bring that amount of food in their house, but sometimes it gets in there because some of them are favorite foods. So how do you know if you're an emotional eater? There are times when I will eat certain foods because I'm upset. It doesn't happen that often. I think it happened maybe when I was younger a lot more. But there are times, like when you're trying to get through your board exam and somebody's acting up in there. I have gone and eaten something, but I can't eat a whole thing because I have to stop eating at some point. So here are some things you should ask yourself. Do you eat more when you're feeling stressed out? Are there things going on in your life? Your boss said, look, I need so-and-so's file on my desk by 12 this afternoon. You've come in the morning and you've planned out your day already, and he's making it like it's an emergency. That kind of stress, do you feel like you have to eat? Do you eat to feel better? If you're being honest now, do you eat to feel better? Do you eat to calm yourself down? Do you eat because you're bored? Do you eat because you need to soothe yourself? Think about it. Do you do those things? Now, we're not asking anybody to raise their hands or anything, but just do a self-check on that. Do you regularly eat until you're stuffed? As I said, we're not talking about binge eating, but you're eating and eating and eating until you're completely full and you can't eat anymore. Here's one that you should take a look at. Do you feel powerless around food? Do you feel like food can kind of control you in some ways? If that's the case, you may have emotional eating. The other thing is, do you reward yourself with food? If something happens and say you pass that test, in your management class, you pass that test, or you've been promoted, you just go ahead and eat as much food as you want to, but you realize somewhere deep down inside that that's probably not the best way to do things. So just remember those questions. They're hard questions to ask, but in order to really sit down and figure out how you're going to move on about this, how you're going to get better and how you're going to cope better, you first must find out, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And if it's related to emotions, and we all experience all kinds of emotions, but there may be more constructive ways to deal with them. And maybe we haven't taken the time because we're so busy or stressed out to really, truly look at what's really causing us to eat like that. So I've gone over some things, but I want you to just capsulize in your mind what emotional eating, what the cycle is for emotional eating. First, you're feeling upset. You didn't like what happened, something went down, and you were like, no, I can't handle that. You feel overwhelmed because so many things are going on at the same time, and that can happen. In our stress-filled lives, work is one part of it, our family may be another part of it, the kids may be a part of it, the husband may be another part, and the car broke down, and that was it. So you start eating. You start eating because you get these overwhelming urges that come over you to start eating. And these are learned behaviors. You eat more than you really know you should. Oh, Pam said, I'm the opposite. I tend to move around constantly and find things to do. It sometimes takes my mind off situation. Now, that's another way to deal with it. Maybe it's probably more constructive. I've known a lot of people who tell me that if I'm upset about something, I'm going to clean the house. The house is the cleanest it's ever been. Or I take care of that one area in the house where I know that that's been calling my name and I haven't done anything yet. And I just work on that so I don't have to worry about it anymore. And it gets your mind off things. But here's the problem with people who are emotional eaters. Now, we've talked about they're upset and they're feeling overwhelmed and they start eating because they get these urges and they eat more than they know they should. They know that. And then they feel guilty and powerless because they overfed themselves and they have tried, and sometimes may have tried unsuccessfully, to stop this whole situation. So what we want to do is talk about identifying emotional triggers. You need to sit down, and sometimes you need to write this down. You need to journal this, because sometimes when we're acting so quickly on our urges and because of our emotions, it happens so quickly, we haven't really sat down and thought about what's really going on when that happens. So one thing to remember with emotional eating, true emotional eating, it's because of unpleasant feelings. And we've identified some of them: anger, sadness. Some people even eat when they're bored or they feel lonely, and that can happen. A lot of times other things can cause it too, like situations that you reward yourself. You pass that management test, but you're rewarding yourself. But this is what you do when you reward yourself. You just start eating. So let's talk about some of the common causes that people can relate to that may cause them to overeat. Stress is number one. And I don't know about all people, but stress during this COVID season and before has just ramped up. And I'm quite sure more people have been overeating. And people have even been telling me they've been eating more. It doesn't necessarily mean it's emotional eating, though, but they have been eating more, a lot more snacking. But people with emotional eating, I'm quite sure, have been eating quite a bit. Just to talk about some of the scenarios. In some places where the children are supposed to go to school, I happen to be working in a very, very, very small area. And COVID, they had some cases of COVID, so the schools closed down. But they had just started again. So keeping up with different schedules for school, keeping up with your schedules at work and trying to make sure you've made schedules or arrangements for your kids. Stressful. That's on top of everything else that may be going on. So this is what happens. One of the hormones called cortisol is a stress hormone. And this hormone makes you feel like you want to eat more. And so you eat the fried foods, the salty foods, and the sweet foods. And there are lots of foods like that, like the fried chicken, French fries. I like certain French fries. I don't eat all. But I have to tell you that I like Chick-fil-A French fries. Do I eat them all the time? No. But if I get into the situation, I will eat those French fries. And these foods give you a burst of energy, but after a while, the food kind of runs out and then you're hungry again. The other thing is not dealing with emotions, trying to ignore emotions. We all have a list of emotions that we feel at different times. And many people who have emotional eating will try to ignore them. Like they try to ignore when they feel sad, or they're lonely, or they're fearful, or afraid, or they're anxious, or they're shameful. And so they'll take food just to stuff it in so they can numb themselves and see if that emotion will go away. But as we have said before, the emotions are still there. Even after you've eaten all this food, you're going to feel bad about it, because you're still going to feel angry, you're still going to feel resentful, and you're still going to feel as bad as you were before, or even worse because you feel angry because you've overeaten. Now, here's something that can trigger some people: childhood habits. Do you ever remember one of your or one or both, or even other family members giving you food to soothe you? Like you were crying because you lost your toy or something, and they gave you some food, or they gave you some of your favorite food, usually. Or, you're watching TV and and this is for little kids, it's not for older children. And the movie or whatever left, and you wanted to see it again, and your parents said no, so they just gave you something to eat. So that happens a lot in some families, where they will feed children to get them to stop crying, not and not purposefully. It's just their way of soothing the crying. But those habits can have a way of kind of shifting and going with us as we get older, so that if something happens and it wasn't what we wanted, we will start eating. So that's why it's important for us to journal, so that we know what the true mechanism is of that emotion and why we are doing that. The other thing are social influences. Now, we like to think that peer pressure is only for teenagers, right? Or little kids. Don't be fooled. We have examples of peer pressure in the Congress right now. So, if it's prevalent in the Congress, it can be with your friends too, and you may not even realize it because you're going out to have a good time, and you end up at Golden Corral. Now, I don't know of anybody that goes to Golden Corral and only eats one plate of food. And yes, Pam said it's so true. It is definitely true. You will eat, and studies bear this out, that you will eat based on people you're around. So if people are around you and they say, "Oh, I'm not going to buy that, I don't want any dessert," then you're going to kind of fall in line. But if people are out there, and I think Golden Corral, how many types of meat do they have on one board or something? There's roast beef, there's fried chicken, there's baked chicken, they have pork there, they've got fish there, and that's just the proteins. They may have, how many desserts do they have? Okay, so you're going to be kind of eating all that food because you're trying to be social, and you're just going to eat all the food they have there. But it can lead to overeating. And if you're one of those persons that like to overeat, you'll be caught again. So, and sometimes people feel nervous in a social situation, and this can happen to all of us. There's a whole group of people, you don't know everybody, and you're trying to fit in, and you may eat more than you really want to. So, this is a brief introduction to emotional eating. And it's just a way of being aware of what it is. Because sometimes patients come to me and they want to lose weight, but they need to do their homework about it. Because sometimes we have to give them some information to help them move in the right direction. And sometimes we have to help them find a counselor to help them deal with some of the emotions and deal with them in more constructive ways. So, stay tuned, because Wednesday we're going to come back with some more things about emotional eating. And there are things that, and it's really a struggle for people. It is not an easy task to just stop eating like that. It's not an easy task. And so next time we're going to talk about things that people with emotional eating can do. And there are probably a lot of self-help books too, but we're going to talk about some other things. We're going to drill down and talk about some other things and other ways for you to look at emotional eating, not as something to be ashamed of, but a way to deal with some of the emotions you have. And maybe really find some other constructive ways to deal with your emotions, because we all want to be better. We always want to be better than we are. And remember, when we were talking about mental health awareness, we were talking about things that people hadn't thought about before. So I am Dr. Hope Watts, board certified family physician. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So in the next few days, you're going to see my advertisements for my book. My book is ready. I have been talking to you about this for I don't know how long, but my book is ready and we're going to advertise it. We're in pre-sales now. So we'll get all that information to you this week. And then stay tuned, because there is going to be a launch party. So if you want to kick up your feet and you want to get down, come to my launch party. So we'll see you on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And we'll continue with our excitement and our information about emotional eating. And you may not have emotional eating, but you can ask someone else to come who may have it or who wants to know about it. So until Wednesday, I hope you have a wonderful night tonight and you sleep well. Take care. Hope to see you soon. Are there any questions I forgot? Oh, Pam said, can't wait. Okay. You'll know soon. We'll get that information out to you. Take care now.